We are back with Team Rising. We've got Roger and Holly here today, and we're talking politics now. So a couple things going on. CNN's got a new poll out that dug both into just the horse race numbers, but also into some policy issues. So on the horse race, they found what our poll and others have found, essentially. Biden has dropped post-debates. Kamala Harris has come up. Elizabeth Warren actually gained more in their poll than in others that I'd seen, and Bernie Sanders also dropped a bit. So is this going to settle out and go back, or is this a permanent sort of change for the state of the race, Holly?
Well, I think your front runners they're going to jump ahead of each other, but they're all going to kind of stay clustered. I mean, we've seen this happen in other elections. You may have a few people surprise and come up from behind and kind of join that pack and fall back again. But I mean, they all performed, I think, as expected or a little bit better. I think everyone was really happy with Kamala's performance. She came out very strong. It will be interesting, though, in the next debate to have Elizabeth Warren join them, though, and kind of see what the dynamics are with all of them together and see if that changes anything, you know?
Yeah, well, we should note, I mean, some of the lesser candidates who we didn't even mention, like Andrew Yang, are already qualified for the third and fourth debate. So we can't count out Yang or Tulsi Gabbard or many of these people with impressive fundraising apparatuses. I really think the question is who do you think, Roger, is not going to make it onto the stage in the third and the fourth debate?
Well, first off, I think the idea of the threshold that the DNC is using is not necessarily a good measurement of where folks are at. Because, for example, if you go into Berlin, New Hampshire, or Carroll, Iowa, are you actually going to see, like, Yang staff going door to door and things like that? Maybe you would. I haven't been on the ground in those states for a little while. So there's an organizational component to this that is not necessarily captured in polling and things like that.
That's interesting. But then again, counter argument, Trump didn't have any.
Yeah, he had nothing.
No, but it is interesting though, because it is though the DNC is forcing them to focus on the national stage more than really focus on their primary states. And so from a strategic point of view, it's like, well, they need to qualify for the debate and they have to meet all of these different thresholds and be in these national polls. But yet, really, should they be looking at the first half dozen states and really focusing their efforts there? I don't know.
I saw an interesting proposal from Josh Barrow, who was like, I think it might have been better off whenever we all just had the candidates themselves organize the debates. Because any set of rules is inherently discriminatory. The top 5 candidates themselves could just decide to exclude everybody else. I think everyone would generally be fine with it, right?
I don't know about that.
I mean, if the lesser candidates wanted to, they can do that too. And if they if the higher candidates want to talk to the lesser candidates, that can all be negotiated. I just think that with the DNC rules, it's like we're saying, the fact that Steve Bullock is not on the stage, he may not be doing well in the polls. He's a red state governor. Doesn't the DNC want to incentivize that?
Right. And for the American people to at least have a chance, Roger, to hear from him to make up their mind whether they want to elevate him in the polls or not.
I mean, similar to our other conversation, if you're going to have rules and thresholds and, criteria, then you need to abide by those, right? And the fact of the matter is he didn't. He turns around and says that he couldn't do it because his legislature was still in session, and if he hadn't stayed, the self-pity thing kind of works for the president, but I would recommend that the Democratic candidates don't take self-pity on as a strategy. So, at some point you have to have some kind of filter, right? Because otherwise, as we all know, when you actually go to vote for president, there's like 35 names in there, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a whole bunch of
normal year.
There's Green parties and there's Vermin Supreme running around New Hampshire with a boot on his head. Like, there's got to be some kind of adult in the room on this stuff.
Yeah. So. Spoken like a true presidential campaign stalwart. But I am interested to hear your take, Roger. Like, how lasting do you think the shift from this debate is, and what did you make of the most explosive moment between Biden and Harris?
When moments happen that crystallize dynamics, they tend to reaffirm things that are already somewhat latent in people's minds. So, for example, when John McCain said he's uncomfortable using email, that basically telegraphed a clear comfort level with yesterday rather than tomorrow.
Right.
And so in the Harris-Biden thing, I think you really saw something that people were already somewhat leaning towards, which is, on the Harris side, where is Prosecutor Harris? If I were her and she was the chief law enforcement officer of the 6th largest economy in the world, that would be my ticket to the show, right? Set aside some of the her personal stories and things like that. So I think that came to the fore. And a lot of people were like, oh, there's Prosecutor Harris. Like, this makes sense. I've been somewhat expecting this. And then on the Biden thing, you know, as I've said once or twice here before, the very last thing you would want to be in the early states at this point is the front runner. Right. I mean, there is nowhere to go but down. And if you're up and coming and you get 500 people in a room, people are like, oh, you got to pay attention to that person. If you're the front runner and you get 500 people in a room, they're just like, I don't know.
It's not impressive.
Right? So there's only one direction for him to go. So I think the beauty of that moment is it kind of captured a kind of dynamic that people were already kind of maybe expecting in a way, and I think her preparation and grace, frankly, really maximized it.
And I think it highlighted what strategists have known for a long time, that being a woman candidate, it really is an advantage, because here we have Biden. I mean, it's difficult to attack Kamala, and I guarantee you, after holding that position for as long as she did in California, there are some cases that shouldn't have gone forward or that were not handled properly. Not that she necessarily had personal responsibility for them, but in
just
that
like
role.
Joe's vote.
Oh my gosh! I mean, but you know, he can't. He just doesn't feel like he can go after her for that. It doesn't feel right maybe to attack a woman, and he's in a really difficult situation, and I think she's going to take advantage of it.
Yeah,
and she should.
He came off as a crabby old man.
Yeah
he would have been better off. He tried to fight back. He would have been better off responding with compassion and grace. It would have gone a lot further, and expressing some like, I've thought about this thing and I'm in a different place now, rather than just feeling like, get off my lawn.
Think about, I mean, the largest acts of self-destruction, or I should say the biggest stumbles, come from the candidate themselves when they validate some kind of preconception about them.
Right.
And if you're running for president and you are giving back time and you're self-regulating and saying, I think my time is up. Like, you want that airtime as long as you can. And frankly, if you can keep talking way over and get your wrist slapped a couple times by the moderator, so much the better. Look at like the numbers when this was all said and done. Cory Booker spoke for 11 minutes. Andrew Yang spoke for 3 minutes. This is a marketplace, right? And unless you're aggressive and unless you're out running, forcefully getting your points across and selling your ideas, then no one's going to buy them.
That's a good point. Well, we should
also raise new numbers in Trump and the RNC. And Sagar pointed out he's going to love this headline from the New York Times. Trump and RNC raised $105 million in second quarter, outdoing Obama.
That is going to get the president's.
So happy with Maggie Haberman today.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I think it's $100 million cash on hand, 18 months out of the election. Have you ever seen anything like that, Roger?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I worked for 2 campaigns that won the Electoral College and the popular vote, so I'm somewhat familiar with this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, those are good numbers. What you see, the question is like, can they be sustained, right? Like any of these candidates, both parties, set up like a 72-hour blitz, right? So like you've got like your 25 million from your bundlers already in the can, but you're not. It's not going to be filed, and then you have phone banks and all this other stuff, and you try to gin it up so that you can throw out some kind of number that implies lots of low-dollar donations, which for some people are true. I would actually say for the incumbent is probably true as well. The question is like, how much water is in that hose, right? Like, if we get into September and October, how much of that is people maxing out? And then they're also playing a little bit cute with the numbers, because some of that is PAC money, some of that is RNC money. Like there's a couple different buckets in there, right? It's not just me giving $5 to Trump 2020 or whatever the official entity is.
Well, good. That's good.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I just think it is going to be interesting to see how those numbers fluctuate based on how the Democrat candidates are doing. Because as Biden starts doing better, I think you see Wall Street kind of relax a little bit, and they're like, we could kind of live with either one. But as somebody like Warren starts rising in the polls a little bit, that makes them just a little bit nervous, because her policies are definitely not friendly to them, and I can see them wanting to take more of an active role in the re-election campaign.
And if Bernie takes the lead,
I mean, it just depends. So I think you'll see more money go towards the president depending on what happens with those Democratic candidates.
I wish we lived in a system where Wall Street hated both candidates.
that's the goal, the dream. I don't think money is going to be the deciding. I think both sides are going to have plenty of money in this election cycle. Guys, thank you. That's been great.
Thanks to you both.
Appreciate it.
Happy 4th.
Indeed. Coming up, Taylor Swift's music catalog has been sold, and she is not happy about it. We're going to tell you why she is raging against the big machine.
And Venus Williams is bested by 15-year-old tennis prodigy at Wimbledon. Those stories when Rising continues.